The US election is in November, and President Biden has this warning.
Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power.
Donald Trump is favourite to be the Republican presidential nominee, and he's firing Joe Biden's accusation back at him.
Now we have a president who's a great danger to democracy. He really is. He is a danger to democracy, and at a level like few people have seen.
The presidency of Donald Trump remains one of the most polarizing periods in recent American history. Supporters laud his straightforwardness and business views, while critics express deep concerns about his impact on the nation's fabric. Understanding why some people fear Trump requires delving into his policies, rhetoric, and the societal reactions they provoked. Today in this video, we will discuss these elements, reflecting on the profound anxieties and divisions that characterized his tenure. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more interesting topics like this one. Now, let's look at some of the characters that are creating fear within society. From the outset of his campaign, Trump's rhetoric was a key driver of both his popularity and the fear he inspired. His tendency to employ incendiary language and make sweeping, often unsubstantiated claims created an atmosphere of uncertainty and tension, targeting minority groups in his speeches, especially the Mexicans. Trump's language around minority groups was often inflammatory. His description of Mexican immigrants as rapists and the proposal to ban Muslims from entering the U.S. were particularly alarming. Such statements not only stoked fear among these communities, but also emboldened certain segments of his base who harbored xenophobic sentiments. Trump's frequent attacks on the media, labeling them as the enemy of the people, posed a threat to the principle of a free press. This rhetoric undermined trust in media institutions, creating an environment where misinformation could thrive and fueling fears of an erosion of democratic norms. By consistently questioning the integrity and accuracy of the media, Trump eroded public trust in these institutions. This skepticism extended beyond his supporters, contributing to a broader environment of doubt and misinformation where it became difficult to distinguish between credible reporting and falsehoods. By giving a platform to extreme views, Trump normalized rhetoric that was previously considered fringe. This shift emboldened white supremacist groups, as evidenced by their prominent presence in events like the Charlottesville rally, where Trump's response was widely criticized for not unequivocally condemning the violence and racism. After the violent clashes in Charlottesville, Virginia, where white supremacist groups marched, Trump's comment that there were very fine people on both sides was seen as an equivocal stance on white nationalism. This response was widely criticized for failing to denounce hate groups clearly and for implying a moral equivalence between protesters and counter-protesters. Controversial and disruptive policies were frustrating to the society. Beyond rhetoric, Trump's policy decisions were a significant source of fear and anxiety. His administration implemented a series of controversial measures that had wide-reaching implications. The administration's hardline stance on immigration, including the travel ban on predominantly Muslim countries, the revocation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, and the zero-tolerance policy leading to family separations at the border, created a climate of fear and uncertainty among immigrant communities. Immigration policies were seen as inhumane and draconian, causing trauma and distress for thousands of families. Trump's rollback of environmental protections worried many who saw it as a step backward in the fight against climate change. The withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, coupled with the dismantling of regulations on emissions and pollution, signaled a disregard for scientific consensus and global environmental responsibility. That is not all. Efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act, ACA, without a clear replacement plan caused anxiety for millions who relied on it for their health coverage. The potential loss of coverage for pre-existing conditions and essential health benefits was a significant concern, highlighting fears about access to necessary medical care. And Trump's approach to the judiciary, including the appointment of judges with strong conservative credentials and his public criticism of judges who ruled against him, raised alarms about the independence of the judiciary. The rushed confirmation of Supreme Court justices was particularly contentious, with many fearing long-term impacts on civil liberties and rights. Moreover, Trump's presidency deepened existing social divisions and created new fissures in the American social fabric. the country saw increased polarization, with political discourse becoming more hostile and less constructive. What's worse is that Trump's handling of race-related issues, including his comments on protests against police brutality and his equivocal response to white nationalist violence, exacerbated racial tensions. The perception that the administration was sympathetic to white supremacist views fostered a sense of vulnerability among minority groups and heightened racial animosities. Allegations of sexual misconduct against Trump, coupled with his often disparaging remarks about women, fueled concerns about the treatment of women and gender equality. His administration's stance on issues like reproductive rights and workplace protections further amplified these fears. The rollback of protections for individuals, such as the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military and the rescinding of guidelines protecting transgender students, created a climate of fear and marginalization within these communities. Besides, Trump's foreign policy approach, characterized by a preference for unilateral action and a disdain for traditional alliances, raised concerns about the U.S.'s role on the global stage. Trump's criticism of NATO and other international alliances, along with his unpredictable approach to diplomacy, created uncertainty among allies. The preference for engaging with autocratic leaders while alienating democratic allies caused apprehension about the stability of international relations and the future of global cooperation. He created trade wars like the imposition of tariffs and the ensuing trade wars, particularly with China, disrupted global markets and created economic instability. These actions raised fears about the long-term impacts on the global economy and the potential for retaliatory measures. His withdrawal from agreements such as the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal signaled a retreat from multilateralism. This approach was perceived as undermining global efforts to address pressing issues like climate change and nuclear proliferation. The fear surrounding Trump's presidency is rooted in the tangible impacts of his policies, the divisive nature of his rhetoric, and the broader social and global implications of his actions. His approach often amplified existing anxieties and created new uncertainties, leaving a lasting imprint on the nation's psyche. For many, the fear was not merely about specific policies, but about the broader direction in which Trump appeared to be steering the country. Concerns about democratic norms, the rule of law, and the inclusivity of American society were at the forefront of this fear. As the nation continues to grapple with the aftermath of his presidency, the challenge remains to heal these divisions and address the underlying issues that gave rise to such a contentious and polarizing era. Thank you guys for watching. If you like our video, please consider subscribing so that you will enjoy more insightful videos that we post. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.